Before we get started, I just want to mention that only 20.8% of you are subscribed, so if you enjoy the content, please subscribe to support the channel. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Voldemort and his Horcruxes. A known proponent of dark magic, Tom Riddle was a troubled young boy who began experimenting with the dark arts at an extremely young age. As he grew older and older, Tom Riddle, who had been born with an inability to feel certain emotions, grew hungry for power, fueled by the spite that he felt towards his parentage and a world that he felt rejected him right from the start. Dumbledore first encounters Riddle at Wol's orphanage in 1938, and it's on this visit that Dumbledore informs Riddle of his magical background. Riddle knew that he was different, but he didn't know what he was. He had no sense of identity. However, that certainly didn't stop him from tormenting all of the other orphans. As the years passed, Riddle underwent a lot of change. First, he got into darker and darker forms of magic, and later, he decided to get rid of his filthy muggle name. From that point onward, going by a name that would strike fear into the hearts of wizardkind, Voldemort. Today's video is going to look at one particular piece of dark magic that Voldemort produced in his lifetime, the Horcrux, wickedest of magical inventions. While studying at Hogwarts, Tom Riddle befriended Horace Slughorn, his then potions professor. Slughorn had a reputation for choosing favourites, and Tom, who demonstrated an unparalleled ability to learn and uncanny ability to perform magic, became one of these favourites. However, it was this relationship that led to Slughorn revealing pivotal information about Horcruxes to Riddle. A Horcrux is an object in which a dark witch or wizard has imbued part of their soul. The ultimate purpose of creating a Horcrux is to achieve immortality. However, the truly sinister component of creating a Horcrux is that in order to produce one, you must murder someone. There are only two known wizards who have created a Horcrux, the first being Herpo the Foul, and the second being Voldemort, who produced many. In fact, Voldemort ended up creating 7. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive into Voldemort's Horcruxes, where I'll be ranking them from least to most effective, at least in my opinion. Bear in mind, this list will not be in order of creation. 7. Rowena Ravenclaw's Diadem. Rowena Ravenclaw was of course one of the founders of Hogwarts, and her daughter, Helena, aka the Grey Lady, was the one that Voldemort manipulated in order to find the diadem. Helena was among the first generations of Hogwarts students and began attending the school while her mother, Rowena, along with the other 3 founders, were at the school. However, just a few years into her magical education, Helena stole her mother's diadem, believing that it could make her more powerful. Still in conflict with her mother, Helena later died after she was stabbed by the Bloody Baron, but she did remain at Hogwarts as a ghost. Voldemort used his talent for manipulation on Helena, having her believe that he understood her anguish. This led to her revealing the location of her mother's diadem, which was hidden in Albania. In order to turn the diadem into a Horcrux, Voldemort killed an unnamed Albanian peasant. After creating this Horcrux, Voldemort travelled to Hogwarts to inquire about teaching at the school, and it was at this time that he hid the diadem in the room of requirement. So why is this Horcrux so low down on the list? Well, it just didn't have much of an impact on the story. I mean, it's certainly an interesting aspect of the story, but the diadem didn't kill anyone or make anyone go mad. It was rather anticlimactically destroyed by Vincent Crabbe. It was also hidden in a pretty bad location, if you ask me. 6. Helga Hufflepuff's Cup. Helga Hufflepuff was one of the 4 Hogwarts founders, and her cup, which was one of her prized possessions, was targeted by Voldemort because of its association with her. Voldemort held these objects in high praise because of who they belonged to, powerful witches and wizards. Per Pottermore, this cup was handed down through Hufflepuff's descendants until it reached Hepzibah Smith. The aging witch took a shine to a young Borgin and Burke's clerk, treating him to a glimpse of her most treasured belongings. 2 days later, Hepzibah was dead, and her house elf Hoki seemed to remember poisoning her mistress's cocoa. The cup and locket had both vanished. This is of course the point at which Voldemort turned the cup into a Horcrux, killing Hepzibah by spiking her cocoa with poison. The cup was then stored in Bellatrix Lestrange's vault, who kept it at Gringotts. The cup was reasonably well protected, but Gringotts is probably not the best place for things like that, because it's almost the obvious place you'd go in search of important items. In terms of effectiveness, I'd say that Hufflepuff's cup and Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem were way below the others. 5. Salazar Slytherin's Locket. The next Horcrux I want to discuss is Salazar Slytherin's Locket, which was created after Voldemort murdered a muggle tramp. The locket made its way into circulation within the wizarding world when Merope, Voldemort's mother, pawned the locket out of desperation. This is how Hepzibah Smith, the same witch who had Hufflepuff's cup, came into its possession. When Voldemort killed Hepzibah, he scored a 2-for-1 and got the locket as well. After killing a helpless muggle, Voldemort hid the locket in a cave protected by all sorts of dark magic, including Inferi. Interestingly enough, however, the defenses of the cave were breached on numerous occasions, first by Kreacher and Regulus Black, next by Harry and Dumbledore, who retrieved a decoy. The locket, however, was still quite a problem for Harry and the gang, mainly because they had to carry it around for so long, unaware of how to destroy it. It mainly affected Ron, who wore it the most, and it ultimately led to separation, jealousy, and anger among the trio. 4. Tom Riddle's Diary. Tom Riddle's diary dates all the way back to Voldemort's younger years, when he was still a student at Hogwarts. It was a blank diary, but what no one knew was that this unassuming object had been turned into a Horcrux by Voldemort after killing Myrtle Warren, aka Moaning Myrtle, in 1943. Myrtle spent her last moments staring into the eyes of the basilisk that came from Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets. Before his first downfall, Voldemort gave the diary to Lucius Malfoy for safekeeping. However, it wasn't long before Lucius smuggled the diary back into Hogwarts, where it could wreak havoc. The diary had a profound impact on Ginny Weasley, who used the diary as, well, a diary, confiding in it and scribbling her emotions and feelings onto all of its pages. Ginny poured out her soul to me, and her soul happened to be exactly what I wanted. I grew stronger and stronger on a diet of her deepest fears, her darkest secrets. The diary was effective because it allowed Voldemort to grow stronger, manipulated Ginny, and very nearly killed Harry. 3. Marvolo Gaunt's Ring. The next Horcrux I want to discuss is Marvolo Gaunt's Ring, an heirloom of the Gaunt family, which was of course Voldemort's mother's side. As Voldemort was an orphan, he later became obsessed with his family history, which led to him travelling to Little Hangleton, where he met Morfin Gaunt, his uncle, who was wearing the ring. Voldemort then stole the ring, bewitched Morfin, and travelled to the home of his father, Tom Riddle Sr., where he promptly killed him, turning the ring into a Horcrux. This Horcrux was effective because of the impact that it had on the story. You see, when Dumbledore destroyed it, he fell ill, he was cursed, and though he was killed by an Avada Kedavra sent from Snape, Dumbledore would have died anyway. 2. Nagini. Up next we have Nagini, Voldemort's trusty companion and the snake that was once a woman, the victim of a vicious, maledictus curse. It's speculated that Nagini and Voldemort first met in the forests of Albania, sometime in the 1980s. At this point, Nagini would have likely fully assumed her snake-like form, and Voldemort would have been hiding in his disembodied state. At this point in time, both Nagini and Voldemort were a bit lost in the world. Nagini was stuck in a snake form, facing an entirely new identity, and Voldemort had been recently defeated. For this reason, I think it's only natural that the pair teamed up. Nagini became instrumental in Lord Voldemort's survival before he could be restored to his real body, and her venom was even used as an elixir that helped him to survive. It was one of the primary ingredients in a potion that he used to rebuild his strength. Nagini also helped Voldemort to commit numerous murders, and one murder in particular, the murder of Bertha Jorkins, sealed their bond more than ever. You see, after the death of Bertha Jorkins, Nagini became one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. She was now more than just the companion of Voldemort. A fragment of Voldemort's soul lived inside of her. The havoc that she wrought before her death at the hands of Neville Longbottom certainly makes her deserving of this spot on the list. She was essential to Voldemort, though I do think that it would have made a lot more sense for her to have completely avoided the Battle of Hogwarts. 1. Harry Potter. Harry's not actually a proper Horcrux, but nonetheless, a piece of Voldemort's soul fragment lived inside of him. In my eyes, Harry was the ultimate Horcrux because, for the longest time, no one even knew that Harry was one. In order for Voldemort to die, Harry would need to die as well. Harry ultimately chose to sacrifice himself for the greater good, knowing that his life was linked to Voldemort's. However, Harry of course ends up returning to the world of the living, as the only thing that was killed was the piece of Voldemort's soul inside of him. Because of the unpredictability of having Harry as a Horcrux and his inadvertent transformation into one, Harry was the strongest link keeping Voldemort's soul alive. And that's it for this video. Do you guys agree with my rankings? Let me know in the comment section down below. Until next time, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live